How many of you like to be pitched? I would venture to say most likely very, very few of you. Likes to be sold. We like to buy. I'm glad to have you back here on the podcast. And I wanted to bring up a topic today that we're facing more and more in our kind of sales driven world where we're getting pitched and sold every day. I don't know about you, but I've been on LinkedIn for many, many years. One of the early adopters there. And if you haven't connected with me on there, please go ahead and do that. Happy to connect with you, listeners. But how often I get a connection request and then pitched right out the door? Um, or maybe you get an email. I just talked with a client today about an email about, hey, get this thing, that thing, and but they're not truly, I believe, understanding. Well, number one, they're not building the relationship, and this is really going to be the focus of the episode today. Is how do you build relationship over opportunity? How do you be that person that is actually prioritizing that relationship over the sale of the opportunity? To me, that's huge, and particularly in professional services, it's vital. I've actually been talking with quite a few folks recently in the area of business development, um, building relationships, connections. How do we make these connections? And it doesn't start with transaction. I'll just put it that way. Very rarely does it. Um, cold calling, cold selling is a tool, and you know it works in some regards, but is it a long-term strategy? Well, I'll say for professional development, particularly for those in the architecture, engineering, construction, environmental consulting world, um, I don't see that being as effective in the long game. So I want to unpack this with you in this episode of the Intelligent Human Leadership, which again, I'm grateful that you guys are back here. But remember, this is the premise of the whole podcast is that know ourselves better to lead ourselves. We're intelligent human leaders. We are not these transactional kind of mindless bots, if you will. And so if we use aggressive sales tactics, um, we are likely to alienate potential clients or teaming partners, perhaps, and eroding your trust in potential business opportunities. Now, this can be additive over time. So if I've been in this industry for so long, over 20 plus years. If you have somebody on your team that is really pushy like this, it's going to be a big turnoff. And those relationships that you have nurtured and developed potentially over years could be eroded quickly if you're trying to do hard sales. And especially if you're trying to manipulate a guilt trip. How many of you have got these emails that say, "Well, you didn't respond to my email. What's going on?" I mean, and I never asked for their email to begin with. I didn't seek you out, and now you're trying to make me feel guilty uh, for not responding to you. Um, and I wasn't even asking for it to begin with. So you need to build relationship, and we'll get more into some ways we can do this here later in the episode, but I want you to kind of really grasp the problem or the gravity of, if we're not building relationships and we're just seeking opportunity, how does the person know we're looking at their best interest? How do we know that they're looking for our highest good? This is why I came and started working with a company called Giant as a certified guide, is because number one, they believe this foundational principle: build relationships over opportunities. And how do you know that? How can you even get to the highest and best good for the client who's you're serving when you're just trying to sell them something? Now, you may have a great product or a service, but if you don't understand their challenges and problems and how it would apply, you have generically maybe how it could work, but really understanding them and where they're at, it's a real miss. This can deeply impact your brand reputation or marketing. in the industry. How many of you have ever been been hard sold on a multi-level marketing, for example? It's typically that's one way you find it, and then you're like, man, I'm gonna hear that company. I don't even want to go touch them, or even I've never interacted with them, but I've heard other people have negative interactions, and then they're like, no, no, I'm not. I'm even going to entertain them, even though they may have fantastic products and resources. It's because of the sales tactics, not building relationship and understanding, that they've eroded trust. Um, so there's this, external view. I always like to look things in different ways, but I want to look at that there's this way your company will be affected and how you will be even perceived, obviously in how you're interacting with people if you're making it about transactions. If you're not thinking about this also, the emotional or psychological toll that is taking on those that are selling, if they're prioritized to get just the sale, right? Just get this in, and they're not creating the value and understanding who they're selling and why they're selling and how it can really benefit them and understanding where the person's at. You're causing them to be transactional. It's very stressful, and so when they're doing that, we are prone to manipulate, maybe not intentionally, but think about the toll that it takes on you or the person, because they're manipulating themselves in order to get a result that is not in the best interest potentially of their client, but they're also they're trying to make themselves as a seller, uh, as using these tactics that are um, not natural. They're not in a way of, again, looking at the best interest of the client or teaming partner. Um, and if you keep doing this, it's going to be hard to keep people. Employees will be dissatisfied. Again, anybody that's pushed in a selling role is going to feel kind of dirty about it. They're not going to feel good about it because they're trying to, make it transactional. And your morale will be affected, and then you'll have more turnover. And then you start to get even more desperate, like, oh man, we lost more people, now we have to do more sales. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy if you're not careful about this, and then you're not going to attract key clients or key employees. You need both. And so if you're pushing this so hard and you're losing the perspective of building the relationship before the opportunity, I'm telling you, it's a short-sighted game. You need to look at the long game here and develop relationships. Allow people to say yes to you. And there's a whole nother course and talk I could go through, what I call strategic seduction in a good way, meaning how do you reach people by communicating your message, uh, capturing their permission. And you can go down this route of addressing their mindset and the issues there. So what I want you to understand is it starts with building a relationship, providing value before, even you're giving, before you're even taking or trying to sell, and give them the opportunity. This is huge. Um, if we are living this way in a world and make it so transactional, think about the reverberating facts, because this is not just in sales. This is in all relationships. If you're trying, we're always selling, if you will, if you will. But selling means we learn about the other person, we build a relationship, and then we find out, is there an opportunity for me to provide a service or a product that really meets their need? Do I assess where they're at, right? It's understanding, it's asking questions. We're gonna get a little bit more in here. But if you're making it all transactional, just think about the cascading effect that has. You know, it's not gonna be up in your business. It's gonna be in your relationships, your personal relationships, or maybe your marriage with your wife or your husband, with your children, with other people in your community. If you're making everything transactional and you're like, well, yeah, this you get this and I get that, it's not a long-term strategy for success. This will impact our culture. We already see it now, very much so, where there's a prioritization of profit over people, where we're making things transactional. We're not looking at the highest and best good. Can you do it? Absolutely. Is it sustainable? I don't believe so. I believe ultimately it won't survive, but in the short term, yes, you can manipulate, you can adjust, you can tweak the system, but I don't believe, if you're listening to this podcast, You're that person. You're looking to leave a legacy. You're looking to empower those in which you serve. Um, and that is what we're about here on the Intelligent Human Leadership podcast and the community of Steward Yourself and the coaching program that I created, is to create a space where we rise up together and we go farther together than trying to manipulate and be transactional. We want you to be the smartest, most intelligent human in the room so that you can lead others and show them examples of how you can transition from being transactional to building the relationship. So, how do we do this? There's different ways, and I can get into some specifics with you today. But I want you to kind of think about this premise of where these things go if you're not paying attention to this, and then you start to get transactional and lose sight of building the relationships. Building trust is so key because in today's age, we are not trusting. There's a lot of noise in the system, and so how do you separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak? How do we get clearer and know we can actually trust somebody? Well, it takes time. It takes ability to ask questions and be curious and to learn. For me, it's really important about that. I need to hear and ask questions and learn, where are you at? What's working? What's not working? What's a pain or a problem you're facing? What do you really want? Um, what's your desired outcome? Right? Be curious and listen, and then be realistic. Can you actually deliver on that? Maybe or partially, or maybe not. Maybe you're not the best fit. I so appreciate those that I've met over the years that recognize and say, you know what, let me talk with you, but yet I'm not trying to sell you anything up front. I just want to see if there's even a fit here. Right. And I would say anybody that's trying to push a sale over the relationship, I would not be trusting. I would definitely be cautious in there. Um, how do you are you good at being empathetic? Are you good at being an active listener? Can you take genuine interest in others? Or you do have an set agenda, and when they respond, you already have a counter response. Are you listening for understanding? Are you listening to respond? This is really important. How many times do you listen to respond? And for those of us that are married, we're trying to respond. We're trying to be right. Have you been that way? Like, oh, I got the right answer. I've got the right product or the right service. It's just what they need. And you're trying to be right. And in being right, and you may actually be right what they need, but they're not hearing it. That's not the problem. That's not the pain they're having. And you're forcing it. You're trying to be right. You're trying to give them the solution, and they're like, I don't see it. And so you end up losing and they end up losing because they don't you've missed a connection to build a relationship and understanding with one another. If we don't do this well, we are doomed to repeat it. We want to break that cycle. We want you to be, again, the most intelligent human leader in all areas. Business development is huge right now. And this is where I come in with business companies and individuals to help them navigate this because it's like, where do I start? Now, granted, not everybody, and has a voice for this, and I think it's important to know this. Um, I've talked about your leadership voice, understanding your voice. Go back to I'm looking at my notes here, episode 6, I believe. Yeah, go back and look at that. But one of the tools I use, and if you guys are interested, just message me and I'll send it to you free. It doesn't cost anything. Is your five voices? What's your leadership voice? If you're a nurturer, if you're a guardian, if you're a connector, pioneer, a creative. Nurturers are usually the quietest voice, and they're not going to be necessarily the strongest in business development. And so it's important to know your voice and where you stand up. I'm a connector, so I naturally gravitate to talking with lots of people and building those relationships. Again, it's important to know this. If you're putting somebody that is in a different type of primary voice role, this could be very difficult for them, and they may end up going to being transactional. So understand this. Also, to understand who your audience is. Again, who are the people you're trying to reach? Where are they? What do they like? What's important to them? You need to understand this and build this connection with them, so that they know you truly care, number one. And we've talked about this, and I've talked about this in the past. Communication Code book is another great book. Is understanding what you're trying to communicate with them. Are you trying to collaborate? Trying to celebrate with them? You're caring for them? Are you critiquing them? What is it that you're providing? What kind of communication are you providing them? So again, if you're not adept at this, and not everybody is, and that's okay. That's why you have a coach or a consultant, and that's where I can help you. And I like I said, I can't solve everything on this podcast. I wish I could. I can't, but at least I can give you some tools and some things to consider, so that way the next time you have an opportunity, you think about the relationship first, not the opportunity. You think about the relationship. How can I help this person in their highest and best need, looking out for them? And then what would match up with that? And not just trying to say, "Oh, I've got this great tool, and who do I find to give this tool to?" Think about the person and who you're trying to serve. If we're not clear and honest and empathetic in our relationships, right, we're likely to turn off people, and certainly turn off referrals. Because here's another thing: if you're building a relationship and that person is not a buyer, or they're not the ideal buyer for you, could they refer somebody to you? Would they be an advocate for you based on their experience, or would they be a turnoff? And here's the reality, right? We're much more likely to share something negative that happened to us than positive. It's just our human nature. Go look on review sites. Yes, there are positive reviews, and I'm so grateful for them. But oftentimes, there's lots of negative reviews, because people love to share what didn't work well. They love to vent. They love to, you know, um, um, go down that path. It's part of our human condition, unfortunately. Instead of celebrating and recognizing what's been really good. Um, so if you do this poorly, you're going to definitely get turned off. I don't know about how you guys do. I use different technologies, and when I start getting these cold emails to me, honestly, I will just flag it as spam. Um, and so if your email, for example, gets flagged and continues to get noted by others users, um, you get delisted, or you have there's ramifications there. Um, and so we don't want that. We don't want you to be flagged as spam, right? When somebody sees your name pop up in an email or a phone call message or LinkedIn message, whatever the case may be, we don't want you to be perceived as spam, annoying. Oh, this person's just going to pitch me. Um, and how many times do I see that, unfortunately, where I'm like, okay, I'll connect with this person on LinkedIn, let's just say, and the first thing they do is, yep, I saw you and I saw this great tool and I want to sell you something. And it just honestly, please stop. Please stop if you're one doing that. And I don't think if you're listening to this podcast, you're that person. But hopefully you are. Hopefully you'll find this podcast and you'll realize, hey, that's not the best strategy. But having patience and persistence is really key here. Um, I can't tell you how much time it has taken sometimes working with clients or potential clients, from months to years even, especially in the AEC industry. There may not be an opportunity that aligns for months or even a year later, but if you're nurturing the relationship and you're looking after them, how many times, for example, if I found an opportunity, a request for proposals, RFP or whatnot, and it wasn't in a firm I was working with in the past, wasn't one that was specifically for me. It wasn't an opportunity for me, but I knew the relationship. I knew the person that I was working with. And I thought, no, I'm looking after them, and then I share them with this. I'm like, here's this RFP that I can't do, but I know you. I know what you're looking for. I know and this might be something that you may be interested in." And they're like, "Oh my goodness, thank you for considering me." It's actually welcomed, instead of feeling like, "Man, I'm feeling kind of used," or feeling like they just come knock on my door when they want something. Are you offering value? Are you looking after others? To me, this is a great direction that some businesses are taking, um, and one that I adopt myself, of creating value and resources free of cost, so that you can see and experience, taste and see if this is something that's worthwhile and something that you're like, I want to know more about. That's patience and persistence, communicating your message and getting people to say, I'm willing, I want to know more. That's really important. Are you capturing permission? Because if you're not capturing permission and you're just throwing things out there and communicating a message, I would encourage you again to build the relationship. Get people to say, give people the opportunity to opt in, get people the opportunity to subscribe to your list or get on your newsletter. Obviously listening to my podcast, you guys have come and listened to it. I put it out there. I'm not forcing it. I'm offering it up as a resource and I'm saying, here's something to take and consider. So remember that when you're selling, when you're pushing an item, build the relationship over the opportunity. And if you really are struggling with this area, and if you're putting in place of business development, which I was asked, um, I remember this years ago. Hey, come up with a sales plan. Who am I selling to? Who's the client? What market sector? Uh, what exactly services should I be selling? Great questions, and one that shouldn't be taken lightly. This is something that I do help small business owners and even individuals address as I come in as a consultant in helping them and helping their teams. Because if you get this right, it's so powerful. And I'm telling you, it doesn't take too many relationships, too many clients before you can really grow and build that get together, that partnerships. Sometimes it's a partnership. Maybe they're not even your ultimate client, but there's somebody who wants to team with you, that wants to work with you and sees the opportunity and the success together because you've developed an understanding how you can mutually support one another. So important. There's so many varied services, for example, just in the AEC industry alone, among others. You never know when you're going to need that specialty service or expertise. And so if you're building the relationship and understanding this, that is huge. That's why you've heard of maybe a CRM, customer relationship management, system, some kind of system, relationship management. You're trying to manage these connections and understand them. It takes effort, it takes intention, it's not accidental, at least for those that really want to be successful over the long haul. Um, and nurturing those relationships, oftentimes the best clients or the best opportunity to provide a future opportunity is because you built a relationship and those folks are more likely to buy from you because they know you, right? It's much those that you have already, if you bought from me or bought from anyone else, you're more likely to buy from them again because you trust them, you built a relationship with them, and you're like, hey, you know what? They're looking after me. I know, and I'm getting value here. It's much harder to go from somebody that's cold. Well, another thing to consider is once you actually even have somebody that's finally said, I'm in, I want to know more, I'm engaged. How again are you nurturing that relationship before you present another opportunity? That's what I want to leave you with today and considering. And again, as you listen to this in the Intelligent Human Leadership podcast, if it resonates with you, and you're like, man, I want to know more, please reach out. I do a free discovery call. There's no cost. It's just an opportunity to learn, again, value and see if this is a good connection. And or maybe I can provide you other resources or tools and great, you're on your way. But this is why I'm passionate about Steward Your Business and the Steward Yourself coaching program and working as a consultant for other small businesses and their teams. I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen every week. Um, like I said, I'm coming back here with much more nuggets of wisdom and experiences from my 20 plus years working in the industry, public, private sector, helping. And I'm looking forward to getting to work with new folks this year and have you guys come into the program. But it all starts with building the relationship. Hence, Intelligent Human Leadership Podcast and others out there. If you haven't connected with me and you'd love to, I would love to have you connect with me. By all means, find your favorite social media platform. I'm primarily on LinkedIn, but you can find me on Facebook and Instagram and others out there. I would love to hear from you and get your comments and feedback. If this resonated with you, please share and like. Of course, this is always about visibility and reaching more people, and that's super important as well. So please share it. And I'm just grateful for you guys are here. So, with my gratitude and thankfulness for investing a little time with me on the podcast this episode, I encourage you to go out there, look for ways that you can build your relationships today, and then follow up with opportunity. I'm David Carr, the host of your podcast, The Intelligent Human Leadership, with you, knowing yourself to lead yourself, and go out there and be empowered today. Thanks for listening. Bye.